Some games fail because they're broken. Some never stood a chance. But these games are actually good. They had loyal fans, solid gameplay, and all the right ingredients, and somehow they still got shut down. And I'm not talking about obscure shovelware. I'm talking about games with potential. Games that deserved a second life. I'm Chris from HiddenPatch, and today we're diving into the graveyard of games that were too good for this world. So hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it. And kicking things off, we've got one of the most frustrating shutdowns of all time. The game that tried to defy gravity and then got slammed into the ground. Lawbreakers. Cliff Bleszinski, the Gears of War guy, hyped this one up as the next evolution of the arena shooter. Fast-paced, zero-gravity firefights with unique roles, cool movement mechanics, and a gritty tone to set it apart from Overwatch. And you know what? It was actually good. The gunplay felt tight. The classes were fun. The skill ceiling was high enough to make you feel like a god once you figured it out. But there was one huge problem. Nobody was playing. Between confusing marketing, a lack of identity, and launching right after Overwatch exploded, Lawbreakers got completely overshadowed. By the time people realized it was worth checking out, the lobbies were already dead. The servers officially shut down in 2018, less than a year after launch. A genuinely solid shooter, killed by bad timing and worse luck. Next up, the MMO that had every reason to succeed. Iconic characters, great combat, and the Marvel name behind it. Marvel Heroes. Originally released in 2013, Marvel Heroes was kind of like Diablo meets the Avengers. You could play as Spider-Man, Iron Man, Wolverine, all with unique abilities, and tear through hordes of enemies, collect loot, and upgrade your heroes. The game actually had a huge redemption arc. After a rocky start, the devs turned things around with major updates, controller support, and even a console release called Marvel Heroes Omega. But then, Disney pulled the plug. In 2017, just as the game was finally hitting its stride, Marvel ended its partnership with Gazillion Entertainment. The dev team was laid off, and the servers were shut down just weeks before Christmas. No proper goodbye, no farewell event. Just a sudden snap, and the game was gone. Marvel Heroes could have been the long-term Marvel MMO. Instead, it became another reminder that even beloved games can vanish in a blink. Next up, the battle royale that blinked out of existence faster than it arrived. Hyperscape. Ubisoft's attempt at a futuristic battle royale came in hot with flashy vertical gameplay, Twitch integration, and a neon-soaked cyberpunk aesthetic. It was supposed to shake up the genre. Think Fortnite meets Apex, but with jetpacks and hacks. For a second, it felt like the future, but then, nothing. Despite the hype, the player base dropped off almost instantly. The learning curve was steep, the combat felt chaotic rather than tactical, and worst of all, it just didn't feel fun to play. Even with Twitch drops and marketing pushes, Hyperscape couldn't maintain interest. And in under 2 years, Ubisoft quietly pulled the plug. It's wild to think how much energy went into launching a game that didn't even survive long enough to make an impact. Another one gone, buried beneath the Battle Royale graveyard. Now here's one that had creativity bursting at the seams, until it fizzled out completely. Project Spark. This was Microsoft's big swing at user-generated content. A sandbox creation game where players could build entire worlds, program behaviors, and essentially make their own games within a game. Think Dreams before Dreams, but with Xbox and Windows integration. And honestly, it was way ahead of its time. Project Spark had potential. The tools were impressive. The possibilities felt endless, and the community was starting to grow. But it struggled with one major issue: accessibility. The learning curve was steep, the interface was clunky, and casual players just didn't stick around. On top of that, Microsoft's support for the game dropped off hard, killing any real momentum it had. Eventually, they shut down the servers and removed it from the store entirely. Just like that, one of Xbox's most ambitious ideas vanished, leaving behind nothing but what could have been. Creativity alone wasn't enough to keep this spark alive. All right, now let's talk about a game that had everything going for it, until it didn't. Paragon. Epic Games had a bold vision with this one. A third-person MOBA with stunning visuals, verticality, and fast-paced action. It wasn't just another League of Legends clone. Paragon blended shooter mechanics with classic MOBA strategy, and it actually worked. The character designs were slick, the movement felt fluid, and the map design encouraged some seriously smart plays. But here's the catch: timing. Paragon launched into early access around the same time Epic was quietly cooking up another little project. You might have heard of it: Fortnite. Once Fortnite Battle Royale exploded in popularity, Epic pretty much diverted all of Paragon's resources to feed the Fortnite machine. The writing was on the wall. Updates slowed, marketing vanished, and before long, Epic pulled the plug completely. And to their credit, they refunded everyone. But still, Paragon had real potential. A growing fan base, a unique take on the genre, and it got axed before it ever had a chance to hit its prime. A victim of its own studio's success. All right, next up, a game that had a strong visual identity, a passionate dev team, and even a second chance, but still couldn't survive: Gigantic. This one was different. A vibrant, stylized 5v5 hero shooter, where teams also worked with massive guardian monsters. The concept was fresh. Instead of just capturing points or planting bombs, your team's guardian would march into battle once you earned enough power, leading to giant clashes that felt truly epic. It had charm, it had strategy, and it had serious potential to carve out a niche between games like Overwatch and Smite. But Gigantic had a rocky road from the start. Development delays, publisher troubles, and poor marketing meant most gamers didn't even know it existed. And when it finally launched, it just didn't get the player base it needed to thrive, especially in a genre already crowded with juggernauts. The worst part? People who did play it loved it. The gameplay loop was tight, the art style was gorgeous, and it truly offered something new. But love from a small community couldn't save it, and Gigantic was quietly shut down in 2018. One of those games that made a big first impression, just not a lasting one. All right, we're halfway through, and if you're still watching, you just unlocked a secret achievement. This one's called Ghosted. Yep, just like all the studios that disappeared after these shutdowns. Drop the word ghosted in the comments to let us know you made it this far. And hey, while you're at it, give that like button a little love and subscribe for more breakdowns like this. Now, let's keep going. The shutdowns only get worse from here. Next up, the MOBA that had all the right ideas, but still couldn't survive the meta: Darkspore. Originally spun off from the creators of Spore, Darkspore tried to mix action RPG gameplay with creature customization and online co-op. On paper, it had potential. Visually, it looked decent for its time, and the gameplay loop of collecting and upgrading alien heroes was addictive, at least for the first few hours. But the game's biggest issue? EA barely marketed it. It launched with little fanfare, and server issues plagued its early days. The community was niche, updates were rare, and eventually, EA just pulled the plug in 2016 by killing off the servers entirely, meaning it was gone forever, even for solo players. It's a textbook case of a game with interesting DNA, but zero support. RIP, Darkspore. You could have evolved into something special. And now, a fantasy MMO that should have been a dream come true for fans of high-stakes action: Dragon's Dogma Online. Capcom took the cult hit Dragon's Dogma, known for its amazing combat, climbing massive monsters like Shadow of the Colossus and dark fantasy vibes, and turned it into a full-blown online experience. And for a while, it worked. Japan got exclusive access, and the game built a loyal fan base with regular updates, new classes, and epic boss fights. But here's the catch: it never released globally. Despite tons of demand from Western fans, Capcom kept it locked to Japan, with no official English version. Even die-hard fans resorted to using VPNs and patching the game themselves just to play. In 2019, Capcom shut the servers down, and that was it. No global launch, no second chance. Just gone. Dragon's Dogma Online could have been a global MMO legend, but instead, It's just a what if. Now for something a little different. A fan-powered revival that got crushed before it could thrive. Halo Online. El Dorito. Originally, Halo Online was a weird Russia-exclusive multiplayer experiment built on the Halo 3 engine, and it never made it out of beta. But when modders got their hands on the game files, they rebuilt it from the ground up into something incredible. They called it El Dorito, and for a brief moment in time, PC gamers had access to a free, community-run Halo experience that brought back classic arena combat, mod tools, and custom servers. Everything fans had been begging Microsoft for. It wasn't some janky side project either. El Dorito ran smoothly, looked great, and felt more true to old-school Halo than anything in the Master Chief Collection at the time. It was a nostalgic dream come true. But just as it started gaining traction, Microsoft stepped in. While they didn't instantly kill the servers, they issued a formal takedown notice that froze development. It was a polite shutdown, but a shutdown nonetheless. The game was technically playable afterward, but support and momentum vanished overnight. El Dorito proved there was massive demand for classic Halo on PC, but Microsoft didn't want it coming from fans. Before we hit the final game, we've got one more entry that didn't quite make the full list, but definitely deserves a shout. Blue Protocol. A visually stunning MMO with anime aesthetics, Blue Protocol had all the makings of a global hit. Developed by Bandai Namco and published by Amazon Games in the West, the hype was real. Fans in the US, Canada, and Europe were counting down to its launch. And then, nothing. While the game did release in Japan, the promised Western release never arrived. Months passed with vague updates, regional restrictions, and silence. For most international players, Blue Protocol became the game that slipped through their fingers, an online world they were promised but never got to explore. Technically, it's still alive, but only in Japan. For everyone else, it might as well not exist. Wrapping up with another case of a good game crushed by terrible timing. Battleborn. Gearbox had something interesting here. A bold mix of MOBA and hero shooter with a quirky sense of humor, cool character designs, and a full-blown campaign mode. It wasn't flawless, but it had personality, depth, and a dev team that genuinely cared. The problem? Overwatch dropped just weeks later and absolutely dominated the conversation. Compared to Blizzard's polish and marketing power, Battleborn looked clunky, confusing, and outdated overnight. Despite a small, loyal fan base and some solid post-launch updates, the game never recovered. Servers went offline in early 2021, and most people barely noticed. A game with heart and ambition, steamrolled by a titan that showed up at the worst possible moment. And that's the list. Games that weren't just let down by bugs or bad design, but by the crushing weight of their own hype. Some had the tools to win. Others were dead on arrival. Either way, they burned out way before they should have. So now it's your turn. What game you were excited for that didn't live up to the hype? Drop it in the comments and let's see how many shared heartbreaks we've got. And hey, if you're still here, you just unlocked another secret achievement, Dead Before Launch. Drop that in the comments so we know who the real ones are. This is Chris from HiddenPatch. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.